Hey guys, what up? Alf here, and today I'm going to be bringing my Frog Monarch deck profile for the post-September 2011 ban list. Yeah, just a little background for the deck before I start. I really wanted to play Formula Monarchs at the end of the last format with the plant engine and everything, and I was planning to continue running this format as well. But then obviously the ban list came along and hit Fishborg and Formula and all that, so that kind of completely erased any chance of running Formula Monarchs. But I think with that, people sort of wrote off this deck, back to the original Frog Monarchs. But one card made me look back at it and rebuild it, and so far in testing, it's been testing really well. It is a tiny bit slow, so if you're up against plants or something like that, then you're likely to be outspared. But this deck has really surprised me of how it's been able to cope and compete with the current meta. So I'll just bring you the deck profile. Start off with the 3-swap Frog, pretty much staple, really nice opening play. Just get your Treeborn to the grave and you can bounce it. You can use it to bounce your Monarchs. You can special summon it by discarding dead Treeborns. It's just really good all round. Then 3 Treeborn Frog. Don't ask about the art, but yeah. Yeah, just nothing I wanted to touch on as well. When I built this deck, my aim really was to sort of iron out all the flaws I'd had in previous builds. And the main 2 flaws I had with the deck is not being able to get Treeborn in the grave early game, like turn 1 or 2, so this deck aims to get Treeborn in the grave as early as possible. And secondly, try and get multiple Treeborns to the grave as well, because I remember last format running only 2 Treeborn Frog and not that many ways to get it in the grave. Sure, I could open with like 1 Swap Frog or whatever, but my opponent, if they open with a sided DD Crow or a Trishula or something like that, if I only had 1 Treeborn in the grave, there are so many ways to just remove that one. Whereas if I can get 2 or 3 to grave early game, then that DD Crow is pretty much useless for them. So yeah, that's one of the aims I made when using this deck, which is also why I run 1 Skreech. Now, if you don't know what this card is, it's a 4-star effect monster with 1500 attack and 400 defense. And when it's destroyed by battle, you select 2 water monsters from your deck and send them to your graveyard. So obviously, this card is just used to send Treeborn to the grave, and it might seem kind of bad that it has to be destroyed by battle, but it really isn't. Like if you open with this, you can set it straight away, and your opponent might think it's a Sangan and then attack into it with Thunder King or whatever. You can just normal summon it and attack into another monster and suicide it to the graveyard if you really have to. And it works really well with creature swap as well, as I'll show you later. So these 7 cards are sort of the monsters that start the engine off, really. So that's them. Then onto the tribute monsters. 3 Caius, fairly self-explanatory, the best Monarch in the game. Just so good, so good this format, especially against Sangan, and you can hit just anything that's a problem for you. Then 3 Raiza, in my opinion, the second best Monarch in the game. Really underrated card actually. Being able to draw lock your opponent is really key, especially on their back rows, which they might have set as bluffs or whatever, or non-chainable back rows. Hit Tengu back to the deck and they don't get their effect off. Just this card is really versatile. And then I take 1 Thestalos as well. Just because being able to hit that random 1 card in hand and is really useful, especially because against Frog Monarchs, obviously since Caius and Raiza are both mandatory, your opponent might think, okay, I'll just pass with no cards on the field, so then if they do tribute for Caius or Raiza, they've got to target their own monsters. So just being able to drop this when they do that and hit like a Tragoedia or a Gorz in hand if I'm lucky is really nice. Then 3 Light and Darkness Dragon. This card is so good. I mean, sure there are rulings on it, like when it's summoned your opponent can chain 2 cards and then ADD can't hit the other one, but this is the card that made me look back at this deck and rebuild it. It's just so good, this format. Obviously you've got to be careful when you play it. If your opponent has 2 or 3 back rows, then there's absolutely no point really, but if your opponent has 1 back row with 3 or 4 cards in hand, this is honestly a game changer. Because at worst, your opponent will burn like 2 or 3 cards minimum, maybe even 3, 4, 5 cards to get rid of this guy over a few turns, and at best it will win you the game, so it's just really useful. Also when it's like warninged or judgmented, you get its effect off to special summon another one from the grave, so just a really good card. And finally 1 really beaten up Dark Gust Spirit, but I think this card is pretty much staple in Frog Monarchs now. You just need it to clear the field against players who overextend against you, so those are the tribute monsters. I think there are 11 there. Just get these out of the way again. Now on to the defense of the deck, the hand traps. We've got one Gorz, obviously. Oh yeah, sorry for the different coloured sleeves. I'm having to lend these from different decks, but yeah. One Gorz, just the best hand trap right now in my opinion. It's just really, really good, especially because you often pass with no cards in hand, and it's very easy to drop the Gorz. And also it allows you access to Trishula via the 2 1-star tuners you run in the deck. 2 Tragoedia, one of my favourite cards this format really. Now that it's at 2, you can just use it to its full potential really. Opening with this card is really good because you can go like swap Frog, ditch Treeborn, bounce back to hand, and then if your opponent does choose to attack directly, you can drop a 3000 plus beta with Tragoedia, and it's just really versatile as well, stealing your opponent's monsters or manipulating its level 4 exceeds and synchroing or whatever, so really, really good card. And then obviously 3 Fader because it's pretty much a staple in Frog Monarchs. Your opponent will overextend, attack for game, you can just drop the Fader and then tribute for like a DDS or something. And also it's another way into LADD, which is really nice. Getting as many ways to LADD is really nice because you can just drop it, get Treeborn back and tribute them both next turn. So, and then finally 1 Veiler. This is mainly for Trishula really, because Trishula is a bitch for this deck, especially if you leave a Treeborn out on the field and then 1 engrave. Which is another thing I want to mention. When you're playing this deck, be very, very careful about bringing Treeborns out, because some decks run Caius and Chaos Sorcerer and stuff like that, and you don't want them getting banished. So unless you absolutely need to get it out, I wouldn't say to bother. So yeah, that's the hand traps. Work really well, I think. And then onto my techs. I run 2 Genex Birdman. This just allows a lot of synchro options in the deck really. Allows you to access Locomotion or Genex, which I'll show you later. And it also doubles up to allow you to reuse your Monarch effect as well, especially good with Raiza because it's a wind. You can bounce it and then special summon Birdman as a 1900 beta which can attack over Tengu and stuff, and then you've got the Raiza back in your hand to reuse. 1 Sangan because there are a lot of targets in the deck, and it's basically just a way instant access to a turn 2 swap Frog if you open really badly. You can access Skreech if you open with a creature swap. You can access Treeborn if you see a combo with that. You can access Battle Fader if your opponent has overextended and can attack for game. You can access Veiler, Glart Bulb, just so many targets. It's really good. And finally 1 Glart Bulb. This might seem like a really odd choice, but the 1-star tuner is actually very, very good, because obviously with your Monarchs and stuff you can go into any 7-star, which is Black Rose, which is really useful, and Ancient Fairy Dragon against decks like Dark Worlds. But it's also really good access to Trishula as well, because Gorz or Gorz token plus Treeborn in the standby phase plus this obviously equals level 9, and also when it's in the grave you can mill it and special summon as another LADD target, so really good card, I like it. Now onto the spells. Monster Reborn, Heavy Storm, Dark Hole, don't really have to explain those, they're staple. 3 Econ, also should be staple in every Monarch deck really. For the standby phase play, just steal their opponent's monster and then tribute it, really, really useful. Only 2 Soul Exchange, I'll show you what I'm actually doing now. 2 Soul Exchange and 2 Creature Swap. I was running 3 Soul Exchange originally on 1 Creature Swap, but Creature Swap was just too good not to run 2 of. Soul Exchange is just creature control really, just another way into LADD, or you can make some really nice plays with it, but Creature Swap just added a whole, a new way to sort of manipulate your opponent's monsters, manipulate the field to your advantage. For example, if your opponent drops a BLS on you or whatever to banish your Treeborn Frog, if you've got another one in the grave, you can special summon it and then Creature Swap and you've got a permanent BLS. You can Creature Swap some really annoying cards for your opponent as well. Like you can Creature Swap a face down Sangan, a face down Skreech, and it's just really nice to keep them monster permanently rather than just go Econ or Soul Exchange. So really nice tech, I'm liking it at the moment. And finally 1 Foolish Burial, just another way to ditch Treeborn Frog or Glart Bulb if you need it. So cards just to touch on quickly. I don't run MST main because of Caius and Raiza can just hit the back rows. Unless there's a real problem card, like if my opponent mains Mask of Restrict or something, I don't know. But obviously I side the MSTs. And I also don't run any traps. I know some Frog Monarch players play Treacherous Trap Hole or Spiritual Water Art IU, I think that's how you pronounce it, but I can see why they run their cards, they're very good traps, but it's just the fact that I don't really want to be running one card which makes all of my opponent's MSTs and heavies live. I'd rather just not run any and then my opponent just be sitting there on dead MSTs and heavy storms. So yeah, that's the main deck, 40 cards. The extra deck, I'm just going to show you some cards to put into it, but it's really a personal choice, I guess. I mean, I run one Gachi because you can make it with 2 swap frogs if you draw cloggy hands. Barely go into it though. Formula Synchron's a nice idea as well because you can go Glow Up Bulb and Glow Up Bulb and Treeborn Frog, or Effect Veil and Treeborn Frog if you really have dead Veilers. Armory Arm is nice to run as well. Just gives you options with Birdman. Then just generic level 5s, Catasta, Librarian, maybe Magical Android if you want. Because the good thing about Frog Monarchs in the extra deck is you have a lot of space to play with, because you don't often synchro or exceed summon, it's just there in case you need them for options. Obviously level 6 you can run Bryonac, Gaia or Orient Dragon. I don't actually have one right now, but it's always nice to have options there for that, because you can go stuff like well, this is mainly for Monster Reborn targets really, but it's just nice to have them in there as options. Then obviously you want to run probably more level 7s than other levels, because you run the Glow Up Bulb and the Veiler. Black Rose is obviously staple. That Ancient Fairy Dragon is really good this format, especially with the popularity of Dark Worlds. Hitting their field spell and being able to gain 1,000, just sit there on a 3,000 beta is really nice. Scrap Archfiend is another beta you can consider. Level 8, you've also got Thestalos and Scrap Dragon you can run as well. Trishula and Mistworm and stuff like that are really useful to run. And finally, I just want to touch on this card, Locomotion R Genex. This is one of my favourite cards in the deck. You basically make this with Birdman and Caius, and there are some really awesome plays you can do with this card. But basically what it does is a 2500 9-star synchro. You need 1 Genex tuner and 1 or more non-tuner dark monsters. And when it's synchro summoned, you get to take control of the you get to take control of 1 monster on your opponent's field with the highest attack. Permanently, you keep it. It's basically like a creature swap without swapping your guy. So I'll just show you some awesome plays you can do with this. Give me a second, I'll just find the pieces. Okay, so oh, where's it gone? Sorry about this. Oh, I've lost Birdman. Give me a second. Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Right, so say you have a Caius out on the field. Standby phase Treeborn Frog. Activate Birdman to bounce Caius. Special summon Birdman. Tribute Treeborn Frog. Caius, hit their back row or whatever. Synchro for locomotion. Take over their monster. And you've basically just stolen their monster, blown up their back row. And keep the monster permanently. And then you barely used any resources, because you had the Treeborn Frog in the grave, and you've only basically used 1 card in hand, and that just gives you so many pluses off combos like that. So yeah, you can make tons of combos off this card. I really like it. I'll quickly go on to the side deck. There should be 2 Jinzos in here. I don't have them right now, but yeah, so 2 Jinzos for Black Grey heavy decks. 2 Vanitys Fiend, because this card is awesome right now. It's so good, because decks just can't handle not being able to special summon. Agents struggle to get over this. Plants definitely struggle to get over this. They're going to have to use a lot of resources to pump over it. Dark World obviously can't special summon their Grapha. Just a really good card. And you can get it out really easily, obviously, as well. 1 Worm Warlord. This might seem like a weird tech. Basically what it does is whenever it battles with a monster, it negates its effect. And if it destroys a monster by battle, it can attack once again in a row. So say your opponent has, say, a Tengu and a Glow Up Bulb out, you're playing against plants, just drop this guy, attack into Tengu, it negates the effect, attack into Glow Up Bulb, it negates the effect as well, so they can't use either of those. And this card is dirt cheap as well, because nobody else uses it, but it's a really good card, so I tech 1 of it against stuff that runs a lot of effect monsters. 1 DD Crow, mainly for Dark Worlds and plants, stuff like that, just because you can't run Shadow Imprisoning Mirror or any traps really, so DD Crow is just a versatile card. 2 Leeching the Light, Agents, Light Swan, you should know what this does by now really. 2 Smashing Ground, because Christia really hurts this deck. Obviously, not being able to summon Treeborn Frog is annoying, and the only real out you have is Soul Exchange or Dark Hole, so being able to side these in against monsters which bring in big beasts is really nice. Then you've got, there's the other one, 3 MSTs sided, just in case people run stuff like Defy or Skill Drain, which basically kill you game 1 really, but not many decks do right now, so just having these there on the side is really nice. 1 Maxx C for plants and stuff, just gives you extra pluses off the draws and slows down their play. And finally 1 Kycoo, because I really don't like sliding 2 DD crows, just because you never really want to slide in the second, and they can clog as well. So Kycoo, just really good against plants, agents, and dark worlds right now. Mainly dark worlds though. So yeah, this is the deck profile. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any feedback, just drop me a comment. And thanks for watching. Cheers, guys.